Yeah, we should have like a little. Oh gosh. Yeah, we should have a little intro music.
We just like
I
pretended we're dancing to
very
some like
well. Whenever Taylor comes up with the Crock and Flame of War stuff, I will maybe use that. I don't know. Okay, so hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Better World podcast, where we read and commiserate on the atrocities of Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. I am her host and main victim, Sel, writer and director of The Better World, a not for profit fan film inspired by Throne of Glass. The Better World podcast is the cast and crew's homework prior to filming in July. We will be meeting roughly 3 times a month to discuss chapters, even though we are almost at the end now. We're in chapters 90 to 99, so maybe another 2 episodes. And we're going to discuss the chapters, character development, and just put in time seeing each other. So I want to make a concerted effort to do that since our production team is scattered around the world. Our wardrobe director, Liv, is actually in Canada, and I currently live in Japan. I have with me today, as you know, Liv and Ash. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves and what you do on the production?
And I play Fenris.
hi, I'm Liv, and you're probably gonna hear my cat meowing at the same time. But I'm the wardrobe director, as Sel said.
Well, you have to also introduce the cat if they're going to be
Uh,
talking.
if you see an orange cat or hear an orange cat, his name is Jonesy,
Jonesy, it's so
and he's
cute.
very happy to be here.
Oh, baby. All right. Well, so today's episode theme is sacrifice.
Yep.
Yay. um,
Makes sense, doesn't it?
yep. Uh, if you are listening to us for the first time, every episode the host picks kind of an overarching theme, and we discuss the chapters in the context of that theme. This is mainly so that I stay on track and I don't do too many tangents. So it's specifically for me. Um, yeah, we are into kind of the end game, right, of Kingdom of Ash, and it's pretty exciting. We covered a very major event today. And yep, my heart isn't ready for it.
Devastating.
Yeah, just a critical portion of the book today. Yeah, so are you guys drinking anything, first of all? I am not, because it is like 9 o'clock in the morning, so I am not drinking anything.
Fair. I just polished off an energy drink, but let's not give them time. So they're not sponsoring us. So
I am also just drinking water, but I am going to spin it as the drop of water that Aelin is left with in this series of chapters.
wow.
Spoilers. Okay, and do we have some out of context quotes that we wish to share?
Have fun. All right, mine is, and look where it landed her, with a cabal of vengeful gods swearing to end her eternal soul.
I mean, is your life even complete if you don't have a cabal of vengeful gods trying to sacrifice your soul? Like, and how about you, Liv?
I was joking that I was going to steal yours because I didn't do my homework, but I'll let you keep it this time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
But yours is good, so let's hear it.
Okay. Mine is, and far away across the snow-covered mountains, on a barren plain before the ruins of a once great city, a flower began to bloom. So, all right, I think we get right into it then, because with that quote. So yeah, if you joined us for last episode, or if you've read any part of Kingdom of Ash, you should know that the previous episode we covered the 13's sacrifice. They saw the remaining witch tower and decided that they were going to be the ones to end it. It is absolutely one of my favorite scenes of all time. Even if, and I talked about this last episode, but it's a sticking point for me. That chapter ends with the word smithereens. And it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I'm like, Sarah J. Maas, why did you do this to me? Why does this chapter that like brings me to tears have to end with the word smithereens? I will never get that out of my head. Thank you very much. Yes, so the 13 have sacrificed themselves to destroy the last witch tower as well as the Blackbeak matron. Thank you, Asterin. And we roll right into chapter 90 with Manon being absolutely devastated because she just saw the only friends she's ever had for like 100 years sacrifice themselves. And I like to think that this is actually a very realistic portrayal of of that shock that you would receive in an event like this. Both for her and Abraxos. um, and we find out that as she walks down to go see the burnt circle of earth that used to be her best friends in the world, everybody follows her. So everybody in the city follows her. Morath, for the time being, has stepped back and like so they say far back. Like Morath is just like, we need to reassess what's going on because evidently some people are willing to sacrifice more than we imagined they would. So they're recalculating, I'm sure, and they are able to walk down to the blasted patch of earth where the witch tower used to be. And everybody who has come with her lays down white flowers in remembrance of the 13, or they leave like small gifts, or in the case that they didn't have either of these things, just like small tokens of like their, the things that they own, kind of just like in gratefulness to what the 12, I guess, did for the city. But plot wise, I guess the more important part is Glennis, where she waits for everybody to leave before she tells Manon, she reminds Manon of the prophecy that I think Rhiannon Kraken gave ages and ages ago, which is be the bridge, be the light, when iron melts, when flowers spring from fields of blood, let the land be witness and return home. So, giant blasted earth, lots of blood in the ground, flowers being set down, and you know, the 13 becoming light. It doesn't sink into Manon just yet, but that kind of gives the witches leave to be able to return to the wastes and restart the witch kingdom. And so the chapter ends with my quote. And far away, across the snow-covered mountains on a barren plain before the ruins of a once great city, a flower began to bloom. If you don't remember, the wastes are called the wastes because the witches are not allowed to grow anything in them. And so that's like kind of the first sign of life in the witch kingdom in 400 years. Yeah. Thoughts?
This is just like a super, well, bittersweet doesn't cover it, but a super bitter end to this prophecy and the revelation that, like, this is how the prophecy comes about is, like, I don't know. I think you're imagining when you hear it, like, a field of blood is going to be pretty bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh, but maybe it's, like, metaphorical. It's like, no, literally.
Literally fields of blood.
Literally the worst possible scenario. That's it. So, yeah. I don't know, man. It's a pretty heavy price to pay for the wastes.
Yeah, because like if you think about it, it's not just the 12. It was like all of the witches that were inside that tower as well.
Yes.
Like that's
whoever was in the blast radius.
Yeah, and then everybody who was in the blast radius, like I don't know, man. That's a lot of it's a lot of wyverns. That's a lot of witches. That's a lot of just like random soldiers that just happen to be close to the tower. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, so sobering entrance to this episode. Guess what? Chapter 91. It doesn't get any better, except for the beginning part where Dorian finally catches up to Aelin and the Southern Continent gang. You know, he had been traveling with the Wyverns from Morath northward, and that's when he saw the foreign army. And I thought this was really interesting. We normally see Dorian reference his princely education and like manners of the court. And this is the first time where you're like, oh, like he studied the Dargon cavalry. Like, of course, that makes sense. He's going to be king one day. Like, they should have told him about it. And so, but the fact that he can like kind of recognize them on sight is very interesting to me. And I'm like, oh, look, my boy is very smart. But yeah, and it's just very heartwarming because he touches down and everybody recognizes him. Like, everyone's just running out to go see him. Aelin and Rowan and Alid and Lorcan, like they're all coming to say hi. And they catch up a little bit. But then he sees his boyfriend and nothing else matters because his boyfriend is walking again.
That's fair, honestly.
Like, the world went quiet. And he's like, Dorian stared at the rider before him, at the posture of the body, the commanding seat he possessed. Like, dude, you staring at his ass? Like, you definitely are. Like, and then he cries. It's just like, baby has not cried since probably Sorsha. Like, I can't think of another time where Dorian cries. I mean, there probably is one, so if you know of a time when Dorian has cried, put it in the comments below and tell me I'm wrong. But, like, I like to think that between Sorsha and now, there has been no crying, but he does cry because he sees Dorian's walking again. And I think that's very sweet. Yeah, so... Yep, so Dorian catches up to everybody and finds out this is his wife. I'm sure he's there's actually a line in here that I was like, no, this is definitely like how your boyfriend comes back and is like, look, I got married. And,
oh my god.
He says I don't remember where it was. Oh, here it is. Irene Towers, a healer at the Torres Chesme, and my wife. Irene bowed, and Kale could have sworn a flicker of sorrow darkened Dorian's eyes. And I'm
like... The story that anyone has to be Kale's wife, I think. That's all.
No, I mean, I think that's like, that is the first impression I got was like that. I'm like, oh, I mean, yeah, he's just thinking about Sorsha. But right away, it gives you that impression. Talking about his boyfriend.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, my boyfriend went and got married. He didn't even ask me first.
I didn't get to be the best man.
I didn't get to be the best man. I didn't get to be
invited to the wedding.
I don't know. I don't know if I approve of her yet.
Fine, oh, yeah. I'm happy for you. No, he's very gracious about it. And they are all catching up. They find out that Aelin finds out that her plan worked. The Fae over in Coronel have kicked Maeve out, and that's fantastic because she's a bitch. So,
That's why.
I mean, that is what Fenris says. I totally forgot that that's what he says.
No, I
Oh my
literally, I
God.
wrote down, I'm like, I know Fenris is in these scenes. Let me go see what he says. And the fact that bitch is just the first thing that he says in this chapter is incredible.
I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like that just completely encompasses his thoughts about Maeve anyway. So, like,
We didn't need an excuse, but he saw an opening.
yeah, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out the timeline upon which events have happened. So, like, if they've left the Farian Gap, Maeve and Erewhon were in the destruction of Morath 3 days ago, like trying to piece together what's going on. And they find out that the Iron Teeth host went ahead of Erewhon. So at the very least, Erewhon is not in Orinth yet, but he will be soon.
Mhm.
So great. And the fact that there are over 1,000 Iron Teeth, so not great. And Aelin goes, yeah, this is not a great situation, but we have the word keys, so, like, let's end this. And I kind of actually thought, so maybe this is one of the failures, I think, of Kingdom of Ash, right? Is that they talk, and we discussed this a little bit earlier, but, like, they talk a lot about how the word keys are extremely powerful, right?
Yes.
And how hard it is to get all 3 of them together. I don't know what the word keys do. I don't know why they're important. I mean, like, I know why they're important,
Right.
but I don't know why everybody wants them.
Yeah, it's they don't tell you why this would be like the end game for anyone to have.
Yeah. And like, there's kind of a little bit of hand waving here because everyone's just like, why don't we just wield the word keys? And they're like, no mortal is able to wield these keys.
Mm-hmm.
It takes all of Aelin, or it takes all of a person just to put them back in the gate. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why? Like, what does it do? Do the keys, like, suck magic out of things? Because in that case, we should do the Baldur's Gate 3 strategy of putting the explodey chest in the center of, like, in the center of the goblin camp, and just have people keep hitting it and getting damaged by it. Like, I feel like this is very important. No, but, like, I feel like using the word keys was not explored enough to justify not using them. Because if it already takes one person to, like, put the keys back in the game, you already know you're going to sacrifice one person. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So take Aelin and the word keys to Orinth, blast the shit out of a bunch of people until she can't use her magic anymore, and then use the word keys and, like, give herself up there, maybe. Like, I feel like this plan wasn't really thought through, and the fact that it's either, like, I want to die now, or, like, we don't use the word keys and I, like, use the word keys after the battle and die later.
Yeah, it's also just a failing of like the magic system, like because we have the word marks and we all more or less know what those do. Like they have specific rules; they have to be written or whatever. It's not like it's not clear who can use the word keys except for like some kind of immortal being, and like in what context would they use them except for we find out to walk through worlds, but.
Yeah, because what does immortal even mean, right? Because in general, we know that the Valg aren't immortal because they can be killed.
Yeah.
They just have really long lifespans. And if Aelin and Rowan can both live to be 1,000, that sounds like they're immortal to me.
Yes.
So why can they not use that? I don't know. Especially because Aelin's supposed to have power to rival the Valg. So it's not a power thing either. And the Valg can use them without with impunity. Like I don't understand like what is happening here. Maybe it's because like it's from their dark world, and like
That's what I'm wondering.
they
Like,
brought them over.
It's because they're kind of like a corruption in our world, so it would be very corrupting to anything in our world. But I'm also thinking like they could have even added a little bit more detail to the keys themselves. They just kind of describe them as little shards of glass, but like, what if there were word marks all over them, and like you could read, details
What it
about
does.
what they do, or like
Yeah.
something like that. Like
Give
a
me
little
instructions,
bit more
man.
flavor. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just this chapter is very frustrating to me, or like this the fact that they discuss like the vote. So to summarize, essentially, Aelin tells everybody that they're going to vote on what she does, and the two options are destroy the keys now, or put the keys back in the gate now, and I die, and you guys go on to maybe face an enemy that still exists, right? Or I come with you and try to defeat the army with Erewhon and Maeve there. And then if we survive, we put the keys back later. Either way, Aelin dies, because she is very adamant that Dorian will not be the one sacrificing himself, which he and Rowan take very they take offense to. Neither of them really want that.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, so they go back and forth and they debate back and forth on the pros and cons of like both options. Honestly, like I think this southern continent, like the Cognate royals, are putting out mainly the good points of what are the pros and cons for each one. I do like that Nezarin is just like, why don't we use the keys, guys? Like, let's go and do this. And Dorian's just like, they cannot be wielded. Okay, Dorian,
so
sure. Yeah, and I do like that Fenris's loyalty of like, you'd rather my queen die than your king. I'm just saying, I have a full court. Yeah, so they eventually, or they actually go into why are the gods not helping, which I do appreciate. But it's, the standard, any gods, unless it's specifically about God's help, novels it's specifically about God's helping, they generally don't do that. Either they can't or they won't because they're just not interested or whatever. I think in this case they are interested, but for some reason they cannot help.
Which conflicts with stuff that we've been seeing throughout the story, which is the gods nudging them all in certain directions. So that's at odds with that for me, and that's why I'm very unsatisfied with that kind of explanation.
I am unsatisfied.
Really, why aren't they helping more?
I'm unsatisfied too because if I remember correctly, in Empire of Storms, Deanna actually shows up. Like, she shows up on the ship and like causes shit to happen, and I'm like, so you can do something.
Yeah.
But yeah, they pretty much they get rid of that option, and Dorian is very, very adamant that he's going to be the one to do it, and Aelin is just like, no, we're not debating that. We're not debating who shall pay the cost. And Rowan and Dorian share this moment of, we're going to talk to Aelin about this later. And she just says, I don't really care what this debate is about. We are voting right now. And ultimately, the vote is that Aelin puts the keys back in the gate now. And I think that as much as this chapter really frustrates me, the very end when Elide asks, "What is your vote, Aelin?" and Aelin says it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, like, both literally, right? Because of the skew of votes, whatever she votes, it doesn't matter. But also just the idea that, like, what she wants doesn't matter. It's what the rest of Aurelia wants. And I'm like, okay, I see why you did the voting chapter. I see you, Sarah J. Maas. These 2 lines are the only reason why you did this chapter. I see you. Yeah, so chapter 92, Aelin and Rowan are talking because Rowan does not accept this. And it's kind of a little bit heartbreaking too that if she has to do this now, like in the morning, there's no chance of her going to see Terrasen again. Like, she has to do it in a place where she was tormented and tortured.
Yeah, we're
as
at
a
a
slave
Novier.
instead. Yeah. Congratulations. It's also not just a random place in the woods. It's the salt mines where you were trapped for a year. Like, congratulations.
You want to have your worst day again? Like...
Right? I do think that Rowan makes a very good point, but he is talking where he says that this is not like you. Like, you damn it all to hell. You say to hell with their plans, their prophecies, and fates, and you make your own. You do anything but accept this. Which is the Aelin that we all knew prior to Kingdom of Ash. And at this point, I feel like Aelin's just a little bit tired.
She's just accepting her fate at this point, which is the opposite of what she's done this whole time.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I'm on the fence on whether that's realistic or not. I mean, like, stuff like what she went through for the first half of the book can really change somebody. So I think that it is realistic, but I do think that Rowan has a point of being like, this is very not you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too, it's like that healing process probably takes a while in general of like everything she went through, and she had kind of expected that she was going to be there or die there. So now she kind of has to come back from that just to know that she's going to have to die again. And so I feel like she didn't have the opportunity for that like spirit to fully grow back into her and like ignite the way it used to be, because she was still kind of dealing with that while now having to accept this fate.
It's true. And she spent most of her time with Maeve being like, I need to last like a little bit longer so that I can do this. Like, the fact that maybe there's a little part of her that's like, the only reason I was able to survive that was because I knew I had to do this. And so if I don't do this, then what was the point? And I'm just kind of like, all right, sure, that's fine. Just like stab me multiple times in the heart, not call it murder. It's okay.
It's extremely traumatic for everyone involved.
Yeah,
mostly the readers.
Especially with the forgive me if I don't give a shit that her time has now come to an end when you only received 20 years. And she goes, I got to 20 years because of her. Which is true. She was supposed to die at age 8. Which I completely forgot until that moment. But not even 20. Her birthday was still months away. No. Yeah. Rowan does make a very good point. Elena and Nehemia said Dorian wasn't ready. Dorian walked into and out of Morath, went toe-to-toe with Maeve, and brought the whole place crashing down. I'd say he's as ready as you are. Like, yes, that's my boy. He did so many good things.
From like a standpoint of like one of the people in the court are voting as well, though. It doesn't make sense to me why they would want Aelin to do this versus being like, well, let's have Dorian do it, obviously, because Aelin has proved time and time again that she is OP. She is so powerful.
It's true.
Dorian's just done like one thing. And like, I don't even know if half the people in that group know about it, really.
Yeah, the Southern Continent folks don't know that.
Yeah. So to them, I feel like the choice would be easy unless they're like afraid of Aelin becoming a ruler eventually. But those seeds were not sown.
So I think
so.
I think it's less that and more it's said and shown multiple times now that the Southern Continent pretty much will defer to Kale.
Mm-hmm.
And Kale does not want Dorian to die. And like they diverted their whole army to go to Aniel.
Yeah.
Like if Dorian doesn't want or
Their
Kale doesn't want Dorian to die. Like
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I'm
know.
surprised that
feel like
yeah. I'm surprised that Hassar didn't say something at least, because I feel if all of them, Hassar would have said something of like,
yeah.
Well, he seems less useful. Like, I don't.
Yeah, like she's the one who really assembled all the armies. Like
Yeah.
they're under her banner, and he's just this. Well, he's not just some guy, but like you know, to her he is.
Yep. Yeah, and Rowan continues to be best husband boy, at least in here, where he's just like, well, you're not doing it alone, I'm going with you. And she's like, no, Terrasen needs a king, and he's like, I don't fucking care, fuck Terrasen. Which is an energy that has softened but not disappeared in the better world, honestly. It has softened considerably, but like Aelin and Elena are still number one, and Terrasen is like way secondary, like down there somewhere. So I mean, at least the man's got priorities. I appreciate that about him. But yeah, and he, Rowan's trying to do everything to reason out of this and just being like, we don't do it tomorrow, we wait. And she goes, what's the point in a vote if we ignore its outcome? Everyone decided tomorrow it'll be over. He's practically begging at this point, like, I will find another way. And she's like, no, there is nothing. There is no other way. We're doing this. And babies, it's fine. Yeah, look, okay, listen, I say things and I forget that I've read them. So, like, Aelin actually says, I held on for this purpose, so I can put the keys back in the gate. When Karen ripped me apart, when Maeve tore away everything I knew, it was only remembering that this task relied upon my survival that kept me from breaking. Knowing that if I failed, all of you would die. And since then, I've been so damn stupid in thinking that perhaps I wouldn't have to pay the debt, that I might see Orinth again, that Dorian might do it instead. What sort of person does that make me? And then Rowan has big brain moment and is like, what if those forces didn't lead Dorian into our path so you alone might pay the debt? What if they brought you together? To not pick one or the other, but to share the burden with each other. That would have been really cute, though. Anyway, I'm not gonna spoil the next chapter, the next couple chapters, but the day you destroyed the glass castle, when you joined hands, your power, I'd never seen anything like it. You were able to meld your powers to become one. If the lock demands all of you, then why not give half of each of you when you both bear Mala's blood? Which I feel would be like a great solution, right? Like, that's great. And so they go and find Dorian, and Yep, and they tell him, like, what if we forge a lock together? And he's like, cool. Starts pulling on his boots. I'm like, man, best boy, look at him. He's just like, yep, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah.
Finally, you came to your senses. Like,
Yeah, and they go and get Kale.
Which is weird, right? Because Ayla's just going along with someone else's idea all of a sudden, and she's just like, yeah, sure, that's
yeah,
fine.
sure, that's not suspicious at all.
I like Aylin. Aylin does that all the time.
She
She
really
just goes with
does,
someone
though.
else's plan.
I do think
yes, we're definitely following your plans.
Yep,
Uh-huh.
that's definitely what we're doing. I definitely don't have a death wish. That's definitely not what's going on here. I do like it that Aelin, Dorian, and Kale are back in Endovier. I think it's like a nice, like, you know, roundabout.
If by like it you mean hate it, then yeah.
Yep, I also hate it. Let's see. Yeah, and so yeah, Rowan reminds her that he is with her, and it's just like, I love you, come back to me. And she draws the word marks and ends up opening the Amulet of Orinth and pulls out the last word key from there. But one of the repeated phrases that always breaks my heart whenever I see it was, "It had all been borrowed time." Is like the last thing she said to Rowan, I think, or she says past, tell Rowan it was all borrowed time anyway, back in Empire of Storms. If you couldn't tell, Empire of Storms is one of my favorites. I think it is my favorite book from the series. So, yeah, and Aelin is just like, yep, I'm not coming back. Like, all of her thought processes, I'm definitely not coming back. This is the last time I'm seeing Rowan's face. Yep. I'm like, Aelin, you little... How dare you? Yep, but I think, on the other hand, Griptorians... Oh god, yeah, this is like kind of like a horror. So Aelin puts word marks on the ground, and I don't know how she like knows what the ritual is.
I think that was the thing that always gets me with this scene is I don't feel like we get any lead up to her figuring out like
how to put the keys back.
Word marks. Yeah, how do you put the like? It's the only context she had was that like Kaltain had it in her arm, but like, how do we even know that was the right way to do that process? Like, we don't we have missed point. We've missed the middle. We've missed the like where she is coming up with these theories as to how to do it.
Yeah.
And like earlier, when they draw word marks and stuff, did they ever use blood at any point? Because I just might be forgetting that. But if they did that, then I could kind of see that being built off of it. Like if they have to be drawn in blood or something like that.
So Dorian has used his blood before to draw word marks.
But you don't have to.
I don't think so.
Okay, so that was my question about that, because I was like, I feel like I remember something, but if again with the magic system.
Yeah, the magic system in Throne of Glass really like confuses me. Other than like the I do like the tunneling. The tunneling of magic is a very interesting way of thinking about it. And like the fact that like Aelin punches through like the false bottom of her power and then just keeps going. That's like a very interesting visual for me.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's just like, yes, let me put all of these word keys in my body and become the gate.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that Kaltain was just keeping it in her body for safekeeping. Like, not because it actually, like, I don't know, man.
Well, we saw it eating away at her in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Having it in her body, but yeah, it's unclear as to why it's in her body to begin with. So
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so magic roared through them and wove together, blinding and eternal. Aelin slammed the 3 word keys into the open wound of her arm.
bleh, first
Blech.
of all,
Yeah, I mean, like, how big is this wound and how small are the
How-
keys? Because,
well,
like,
they have a necklace. The one does, right?
yeah,
So I don't know. Like, are they
like
like
tiny slivers?
little
Like,
stones? How does not get lost?
I know, right? Like, I feel like all you have to do is just throw it in an ocean and you'll be fine. Like, nobody will find that shit.
It's giving Lord of the Rings, where it's the ring is lost and it's like found amongst the pebbles and stuff, and like this would have happened.
God.
I feel like we talked about this in earlier chapter too, when Dorian is going into Morath and he puts stuff outside for safekeeping. Like, if they're that small, how does he find them again?
Yeah. How does he find them again? And why is that such a bad thing? Maybe he should just never remember where they are. Like, just like literally stand on the highest mountaintop and just kind of like toss it. Right? Like, just like close your eyes, spin around in a circle, and just throw one, and then do the same thing 3 times, and you will never find them. But yeah, so it looks like Aelin and Dorian are just kind of like empty shells. There's something like happening here, but Rowan really
Nobody's
doesn't know what's
home.
going on. Nobody's home. And yeah, and they and that's when Rowan realizes that the mating bond is being stretched. And it's like starting to hurt, as if he's trying to like keep it in his chest. And see, this is when everybody should have known, when Aelin didn't like evenly distribute the word keys and only put them in her body. Like, everyone should have known at that point that that was what was happening. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, look, it just feels like Aelin is losing Aelin at the end of chapter 93. Oh my god, we've been almost an hour. I've talked too long. Okay.
Okay, so they're forging the lock.
So they're forging the lock, and then goodbye. That was the end of the book. We finished it.
Everybody died. That's
The
how that
end.
ended.
Yeah. So chapter 94 is the beginning of like the whole lock sequence, which lasts like a few chapters. And Aelin and Dorian are both there.
Yes.
And it's a very interesting, nice visual where they're standing on this crossroads essentially, and there's worlds all over, where there's doors, and they're in a chamber in this crossroads between all of these doors that go to different worlds.
How did you visualize that, like, as you're reading it or listening to it? That's like what I'm curious about, because there's some description, but
I'm imagining that we're thinking of like something like galaxy-esque astral clouds. There is a floor underneath them that is not necessarily, it's more like transparent, like it doesn't actually exist, but they're definitely standing
mirror
on something.
floor.
Yeah, mirror floor.
Yeah.
And as if they're in the middle of a 100 decagon room, right, are all of these doors that just make up like the walls of this room without a floor. And each of the doors all are different in some way. That's kind of what I'm imagining.
Cool.
How about you?
Oh, I hear.
Yeah, I feel like it's similar in a lot of ways. I definitely always pictured it being like kind of inside of a cloud, for lack of a better word, just like really self-contained, but also like really claustrophobic. Like that space is just enough for those entranceways. So it is just like a circle in a very claustrophobic space. And I always imagined all the like the actual gates looking different, but like what is through them looks like wildly disparate.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can kind of see
Yeah.
like just like each door has like this is like ocean world. This is like on the surface of the sun. This is like a world that looks frighteningly similar to ours. Like
Probably like she talks about smelling the like pine and snow coming
Mhm.
back from their world. So it's like, what are the other like scents and other things that she's picking up on from
Yeah.
these other worlds?
That'd be interesting.
The pine and snow is specifically like Rowan as well, though, right?
Mhm.
It's like her tether back there is like his smell. So then, yeah,
That's true. She might not have a
Depending-
connection to the other ones.
maybe,
true,
or
yeah.
if she does, then that's curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, But yeah, I was thinking like long hallway, very like clinical bright white, and like maybe the heavens above and the stars and stuff, and then like arches basically. But yeah, the
Oh,
same kind of like,
interesting.
is there a floor? Who knows? Kind of
Is there a
vibes.
floor?
Are we standing on something? Do we actually exist? Who knows?
The answer is not for very long.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
yes, the lock is draining them, and it's just going, and they think that it's going to turn into the lock that would seal all of these doors forever, and they can see it start taking shape, but it's starting to hurt, right? Like they think they've given over a lot, but apparently it's not even enough for like that the small progress they've seen. And it's interesting because Aelin is trying to remember that she is still Aelin, because as she gives over more and more of herself, she kind of starts losing that. And she's trying to keep that just in her mind, and it reminds me a lot of what she, like her chant when she was captured by Maeve as well. Like, I am Aelin Ash River, Whitethorn Galathinius, like continuing. Oh, actually, okay, see, I'm telling you, I read these things and I forget that I read them, and I think I have, like, clever insights, but they're actually just in the book. She fought her rising scream as her power rippled away, like peeling skin from her bones, precisely how Karen had done it. Like, it's just giving very, like, Maeve torture scene energy to it.
Nasty.
And she's completely convinced that even though they're both draining their power, that it's going to take everything anyway. Which, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it just doesn't. Like, I don't. What is this magic system? I don't get it.
Like if Dorian wasn't there, would she have just done it herself and failed because it wasn't
Yeah,
enough?
that's kind of
like...
what I'm thinking too. That like it just wouldn't be enough.
Again, if we had the blood-based magic system that is kind of implied throughout this, it would have made sense. Because, like, maybe they had to have, like, 3 people who had that blood, like Dorian and her both share, right?
Yeah.
And they're three word keys. I don't know. It would have made sense.
But then
to me.
why
Be
would,
like,
unless she was wrong, or unless the gods were wrong, which is also possible and could be said, right? They all said that only one of them had to.
mm-hmm.
And then it would have been kind of like oh no, they were wrong. They needed more than us. Right? Like it was more than one of us. And we would have been fucked if we didn't like both come here. And actually we are still fucked because only 2 of us came here, right? Like it would have been I don't know. Like it could have been like there could have been 3. This is a little like Liv said, it's a little bit sloppy. There could have been 3, and then maybe one of the bloodline died or something, And so now they're just left with Dorian and Aelin, and everyone's like, okay, well, maybe we only need one. And then they get there thinking that they're going to split it, right? But in fact, they needed 3, and the third person's dead, and then that's why they're giving everything over, like just like you said. So like,
But luckily,
but
there is a
luckily,
third.
yep, they're not alone. It's not just the two of them. Congratulations. Hey, do you guys remember the King of Otterlin? And no, I don't mean Dorian, best boy. I mean,
What's the guy's name?
what's his name? King of Otterlin. That's his name. Definitely his name. Yeah, he shows up. As
Yeah.
Aelin and Dorian are about to like die.
Yeah. Pretty cool of him, honestly, to show up at the last moment and be like, "Hey, I'm intervening."
Right? He's just kind of like, yeah. So, and Aelin's trying to correct him, like, no, you can't stop this. Sorry, we're in chapter 95 now. But yeah, so Aelin's like, I can't stop. You can't just tell us to stop. We can't stop. This is beyond. The train has left the station, right? And Aelin's saying this can't be stopped, and Dorian's like, you can't be here.
Two different dilemmas.
And it turns out that
at the same time.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That Dorian accidentally summoned him. Dorian's just been summoning ghosts left and right, man. Like, what's another one, I guess?
What is this magic system?
I don't even know. Something with
I want that power.
something with Damaris, like, hey,
It's
actually, if you ever read my book, there are canonical necromancers where their only job is to speak to the dead. So anyway,
That's sweet.
yeah, and so Dorian's father kind of shows up and is just like, let me do this, let me finish this. And they are both very confused. We, as readers, are all very confused because this has not been mentioned at all before. Like,
no.
Like, Dorian's father, I guess, has a line, like, technically by blood, maybe? So, like, kind of makes sense.
Again, if that had been explained before now that that's how that works, then we'd be like, oh, of course.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you think about it, right? Because if we're going by Mala's bloodline, Dorian had to get the bloodline from someone, and like,
was it parent A or B? Who knows?
yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
maybe we assume it is. And I think that the reasoning that Sarah J. Maas gives, that nameless is my price and I don't have a name, I'm like, what? What is this? Why are you?
This is when we're all like, wait, this guy actually doesn't have a name? I thought I just forgot it.
Yeah, right? Like, this was the point where I was like, oh yeah, his name is never mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
But, like, I think that's just such, like, a weird reasoning for why he can do this. I would have been more for we're of the same bloodline, because Aelin's bloodline is gone. Like, there is nobody on that side of the family anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But there is somebody who still exists. Like, Dorian has his sibling, for God's sake. Like, we could just kill Holland. Like, they've mentioned before that Holland's not a great person. So, like,
let's fair.
Let's go. Anyway, but I don't know. I think it would have made more sense if it was a bloodline thing rather than I don't have a name, so like, good to go, checks out. I don't know. It's very weird.
I'm willing to let it slide just because of how many books are in this series. Oh, you were tired.
It's fine.
And the king died like several books ago now, so like there was so much we could have learned if he stayed alive longer that we just lost because of the timing of his death.
That's true. Yeah, so Dorian has a very like nice touching moment with his father where like he admits that I want to hate you but I don't. And Dorian's and his father says sorry, which, I mean, I'll be honest, like, he took Dorian's father took responsibility for like what he did, and also he was being controlled by Volg. And as Dorian knows, it is very hard to do anything that you want when you're being controlled by Volg. Like, the fact that he kind of retained enough of his sanity to, his sanity and self to make sure that Dorian wasn't immediately shipped off to Erewhon, that, like, you know, everything like that, like, that honestly should be commended. And, like, I get that you're like, yeah, but he did all these other atrocities, but did he really do all those other atrocities, or was it like the Volg being commanded by Erewhon?
No, it was very confusing when he died. Like, I was left with the same confusion of like, but was it actually his fault? Because I don't feel like it was, but
Yeah,
Dorian's acting, when everyone's acting like it was his fault, but
okay, so he
anyway.
he does mention, he says, "Let me pay this debt. Let me pay this. Do this. Does Mala's blood not flow through my veins as well?" And Aelin's like, "You don't have magic, not like we do." And he goes, "I have enough, just enough in my blood to help."
Right.
So
but again, if we had been introduced to the concept,
so yeah, let's get all of the descendants together. That's what you should have been doing instead of finding the fucking word keys. Find all the descendants of Mala, and maybe together you don't all have to die. Anyway. Yeah, and so yeah, and it turns out that like Aelin is having a kind of like very cryptic conversation with his father, and says, "I had planned to before it got to the end." And the father is like, "Then you will not be alone now. I am grateful that I got to see you again one last time." And it's like she and his dad had like a conversation that happened, you know, in their heads or something, because Aelin turns to him and says, "One of us has to rule," and shoves him back into their world.
Just yeets him.
Just yeets him, man. Nobody yeets Dorian except Manon. And that's because he likes it. But yeah, so goodbye, Dorian. Sorry, you did great. We love you. And I like to think that's why Dorian has magic and Aelin does not. Like, at the end, like, because he ends up still having magic, and he has like a substantial.
I don't like to think about it.
He has a substantial amount of magic left. Like,
yeah.
Like, you guys could have given a whole lot more. I think you would have been fine. But that's just me, I guess. But yeah, so Rowan is shocked when Dorian's like, "No, no, no. What are you doing here?" And yeah, and Dorian admits that it wasn't enough, the two of us together, it would have destroyed us both. Yet Damaris somehow summoned my father and he took my place. Yeah, and Rowan's just feeling the mating bond stretch thinner and thinner. He should have known that if their plan failed, Aelin would never willingly sacrifice a friend, even for this, even for her own future. And he's just like, fuck, I got duped by my wife again. This always happens. Like, this should not be.
He never learned.
This should not be a surprise anymore. I'm sorry.
I had sympathy for you the first couple of times, but at this point, like, come on.
It's like she had lied. His fireheart had lied, and now would watch her die. Yes, actually, because you were dumb and you believed her.
Yep, these are very expected character traits for Rowan.
Yeah, so close now. They're just continuing to forge the lock. And Aelin's magic is continuing to be torn out of her, and she's really trying not to think about Rowan and the fact that he said, "Come back to me." And she knew he'd wait until he faded into the afterworld. Rowan would wait for her to return to come back to him. When she literally said, "Bitch out." Like, um, yeah, but the king does say, I was given a message for you. Your parents are. Here's the thing.
Oh no.
Shouldn't
Tangent.
if okay, listen. If the king is allowed to come back and pay the price, why can't Aylin's parents come back and also pay the price?
The magic sword said that it was him. What you want? That's why. I don't.
It says, I was given a message for you. Your parents they are so very proud of you. They asked me to tell you that they love you so very much and that the debt has been paid enough, Fireheart.
Uh-huh.
She barely felt the tears on her face as she fell to her knees. Yep, and just she ends up giving all of her magic completely vanished into making the lock.
Maddening. Absolutely maddening.
Yep. Chapter 97 says, not an ember, only a droplet, just one of water. That's how much Dorian's father's had magic, was one droplet of water, because he was able to save that much from what Aelin Aelin could keep. He had one droplet of water magic. He really didn't. When people say one drop in the bucket, that's how much Dorian's father contributed to the lock.
I did not think about it that way, and that
Wow.
is incredible.
Yep. So, oh look, chapter 97. The gods have shown up finally. Oh look.
Okay, nice to see you all.
Yeah, nice to see you all. And yeah, summon us, our world girl, and let us go home at last. The final
That's
breaking.
very demanding.
I know, right? Like, look what she just fucking did for you, man. Rude. The final breaking, to send them back to seal the gate. She'd use her last kernel of self, the final droplet. Oh, there we go. That's what it is. That's the final droplet, is to seal the gate shut with the lock, and then she would be gone. So wait,
Thank
he
God
didn't
Dorian
even
the
do
First showed
anything.
up.
No. He did enough of a droplet that she didn't die at that point.
Yeah,
Just so that she could die at now this point.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, what is this magic system? Oh my god.
Man, these gods are kind of
Anyway.
kind of dumb, actually.
Like, if you think
just her.
if you think about it, right? The gods have so much magic. Just turn the word keys over to them, and I think together they're smart enough to figure this out, right? Like, why does it have to be us?
And see, here's why I think it's a blood thing, because if they don't have a corporeal form, then they can't do the word key thing, right?
That's true.
Maybe. Let's pretend that it's that. This is my headcanon. I'm not getting over it anytime soon.
Yep. Yeah, she's just remembering, once upon a time in a land long since burned to ash, there lived a young princess who loved her kingdom. But they just keep like demanding. There's like, now we have waited long enough. Enough of this. And I think that it's kind of crazy that. So Elena is there as well. She's there walking with the gods because they have her like bound to them. And the fact that like Mala did not look at her or at Elena, her own daughter. And I think it's been mentioned before that when the gods take a corporeal form like Mala did, they like gain emotion, which is why she was able to like love Brandon and like everything like that. But then when she became a goddess again, she lost that. So like I can kind of see that, but it's still like a little bit like, damn man, that's your daughter. And Aelin is the one that's just like, I want to make a deal. You couldn't do that like ages ago. And it sounds like Silba is the one who's like, I want to hear what she has to say. Which, yay, thanks, Silba. And Aelin says, a trade before you fulfill your end. You have sworn to take Erewhon with you to destroy him. I would like to trade Erewhon's soul for Elena's. Which... Sorry, you guys who are just listening, I am standing here, like, gaping mouth, because the whole point for you to go and seal this fucking gate was to take Erewhon with you.
Remember how we just had chapter 91? Like, chapter 91 was literally, this is why we need to do it, because it'll take Erewhon out. That was the whole reason they voted.
Like, you weren't doing this for the gods. You don't care about them.
And, like, I know that, you know, it's because she feels sympathy for Elena. But, like, girl, do you know what this bitch has done to you? Like, she has, like, bargained with your life for her own.
Yeah.
Based on a mistake that she made 1,000 years ago. You owe this woman nothing.
Your parents literally just said the debt's already paid. Like, I don't know how much clearer of a message that could have been for you to be like, hey, maybe just
let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Aelin has the gall to do it back, to throw it back at her and says the debt has been paid enough. As if, like, no, this was Elena's fault. Elena has not paid enough. Like, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just, like, being mean about it, but, like, I don't think she paid enough. She passed on her burden to, like, an 8-year-old child. That's, like, no, you should just die. I'm sorry.
Leave a comment if you hate Elena. Thank you.
Yeah, leave it. Or if you really like Elena, and I like to hear your defense of Elena, so we can have a spirited debate about it.
Fight you.
But yeah, so I think that this particular exchange where Aelin tells Elena, like, the debt has been paid enough, that was what really did it for me when I was trying to decide on Aelin's first daughter's name. So, like, I was like, okay, yep, that's what it'll be. It'll be Elena, because I couldn't think of. There were a lot of different options. That was the one that I'm like, okay, I think that one makes the most sense. It's kind of like historical. And you know, it's part of your bloodline, and this moment in particular was what convinced me. Especially when Aelin goes, you bought me that extra time so I might live. Let me buy this for you. No, wait, but then she doesn't, like, get it anyway, because the gods are little bitches, and Deanna just shatters Elena. Actually, she puts her hands on both sides of Elena's head and just squeezes. Yeah, it says, and then Elena ruptured into 1,000 shimmering pieces that faded as they fell. And the gods are like, we do not make bargains with mortals, not any longer. Keep Erewhon if that is what you wish. And I'm like, great, cool, you just fucking ruined everything, Aelin. Like, great job. You got nothing that you wanted.
I do think this scene just does, like, show why that the gods really haven't inserted themselves, because they are just so indifferent about what's going on with all those mortals down there.
Yeah,
so
they just don't care.
This just helped, like, kind of explain why they're not intervening more.
But I feel like, I guess, like, it's kind of interesting that they don't in this moment. Because right now Aelin holds all the power. As we will see in chapter 98, right? Like, she has the power.
We gotta get there.
Yeah, she has the power to like figure this out. Anyway, Rowan's having a bad time. He's just feeling the mating bond go away. All right, thank you, Rowan. We got that. Yeah, and Aelin is starting to realize that, yeah, she kind of fucked with the wrong gods. Probably should not have done that.
Yeah.
And they all go through the archway into their own world, and they all kind of sneer at her, and Mala tells Aelin to seal the gate. And Aelin starts doing the thing where she becomes very spiteful and says,
Fucker.
"Yeah, sure, bitch. Why not?" um, but Mala does say, "Here you go. Instead of your droplet of water, you can use this one last kernel of power to seal the gate. One last gift to my bloodline." Because she realizes that like Aelin tried to sacrifice everything for her daughter, and maybe she does have like a little bit of emotion inside of her, and that's kind of nice. And Mala says, "I remember." The words were joy and pain and love. I remember. So maybe she does remember Brandon and, you know, having a daughter.
I mean, the question is, did it take her daughter being shattered into 10 million pieces or whatever to
Yeah, I think
feeling
so.
that? Or
I think so.
at that
And then
point, that's what it took.
that's what it took. It took, oh, my
Solid.
daughter is gone forever from the face of this world and all other worlds.
All the
And
planets.
all of the other gods having already gone back to their world so
Yeah.
no one could witness it.
Exactly. Yep. And then we find out that Rowan continues to be the best husband, because the tattoo that he's been tattooing on Aelin's back is actually a way of coming back home. He had put together magic in the old language to kind of tie her back to Aurelia. It was actually, in what Mala says, a map home to him. And I'm like,
So many questions.
I have so many questions, but that's also very sweet. That's fine.
It's lovely. How do you learn to do that?
You know, it's fine. I mean, like, it's the old language, not word marks.
He's
So,
just ancient. That's what.
yeah, he's ancient. That's what it is. And yep. Sorry,
Yeah.
I had to read this part because I was just like, oh, I didn't realize just how crazy Aelin kind of gets. Because after like this huge emotional moment, and Mala kind of like giving this one last piece of mercy and being like, just follow your husband home, like you got it, to a better world. And
Except it's
Aelin,
not going to be.
yeah, I know, right? Aelin goes, you know what? Fuck this. And she what she does instead is she sees like the beautiful world that the gods have gone back into, and she she says she had been a slave and a pawn once before. She would never be so again. Not for them. Never for them. And Aelin reaches into their world because she is still the word gate. So apparently that involves, you know, making portals of things, and rips a hole through the god's sky into what she calls a hell realm, and then closes the archway into the god's world. And I have so many questions. Wasn't that kernel of power that Mala gave only supposed to be enough to like? Oh, I guess it's not technically sealing the gate, it's just closing their doorway, but I'm just like, this feels like you're using like a lot of power, but it's fine. So yeah, she yeah, the gods are like being tortured now by the hell realm, which is very nice. It's a little bit of a cathartic thing, and she uses the Mala's final gift to close the lock, seal the gate, and there's a lot of Sarah J. Maas waxing poetic on it's a lot. But yeah. No longer the queen who was promised, but the queen who walked between worlds. No, there is somebody else who already has that, and it's Maeve, and I don't really know if you want to share that title. But yeah, and then Aelin leaps through the final gate before everything gets shut. And this is one of my favorite chapters, honestly. I really like it. Just the idea, she is falling through all of these different worlds, because as the word gate is being sealed, meaning like nobody else can travel in between worlds, like all of the worlds are kind of collapsing in on themselves. I always imagine them like you have like the doors and they all just kind of like close like this, and she like goes through all of them as they're closing behind her.
Cool.
That's kind of the imagery. They're just like stacks of paper that are like burning or something as she's falling through all of them. And of course, Sarah J. Maas wouldn't be Sarah J. Maas if she didn't, show that her worlds are all connected. You see something that could arguably be Villaris from Akatar. I'm pretty sure there's probably something from one of these probably describes Crescent City, like
yeah. There's a city with tall buildings and
yeah, there you go. That's Crescent City.
Yeah.
But I do like that she remembers what her mom told her, which is it is the strength of this, her heart, that matters. Wherever you go, Aelin, no matter how far, this will lead you home. Which is like doubly so because Rowan is her heart. And so he is the one leading her home. Just kind of also metaphorically, like he's pine and snow, and that's Terrasen, and that's leading her home as well. And I do like that kind of callback. And finally, there it was. The pine and snow, the snaking spine of the mountains up her continent, the tangle of oak wall to the right, the waste to the left. A land of many peoples, many beings. She saw them all, familiar and foreign. Aurelia. And she threw herself into it, grabbed the tether, and bellowed as she hauled herself toward down. Because I imagine that if she didn't do that, she would have just kept falling. Like, lots of other worlds. Yep. And there's Rowan being like, wife, wake up! Wife, wake up, please! And all she says is, I came back. You weren't going to, though, so I don't know if, like, you can take credit for that one. But, like,
I'm sure you're getting there,
like,
but, like...
thank you, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like she's the reason she was able to come back, so, like...
Right? Yeah, and so... Oh, so she does still have a small lick of flame. I thought that she only had... I thought she only had the water.
So right at the end of the last chapter, it says she rips a chunk of what Mala gave her to, like, seal it. But I took that as, like, she was stealing that. Like, she threw part of it towards the lock, and then she stole that other part.
Okay. Yeah, only an ember remains. So she only has an ember and a drop. Yeah, perhaps it had been a final gift of Mala's, too, to preserve this piece of her that now formed in her hand, this droplet of water, her mother's gift. Aelin held out her other hand, and the kernel of flame sputtered to life within it. An ordinary gift, a firebringer no more, but Aelin all the same. Hey! So Aelin sacrificed a whole lot of things. Dorian sacrificed nothing. Elena just kind of like sacrificed herself on accident, and the king of Otterlin sacrificed himself on purpose.
Can we start calling him Dorian the First now?
No, we haven't. I'm beeping that out because we haven't heard that yet.
We haven't heard what?
Exactly. You got it. That's for later. No, we still get to call him the King of Otterlin. All right. So, who do we want to name for MVP?
I can't name him.
I will say maybe we do give the King of Otterlin some credit for his one drop in the bucket. For coming back and just, taking responsibility for all the bad things that he did. But I can see that. How about you, Ash?
I think that was my first instinct as well, was him. But it also, I struggle with it because he was summoned there, so I don't
That's true.
assume that he would come on his own.
Okay.
So I think my backup to this would be, I think, Rowan, because he was, Aelin's always playing 4D chess. I do think he was playing 3D chess here. Like, he obviously cannot match what Aelin is doing, but he's trying. He's trying to do his own little thing of trying to bring Dorian in and doing the back tattoo. So he has little things that he's been doing and manipulating in the background. He's just never at Aelin's level.
I actually like that. I think I want to pick Rowan as well. Just for the fact that she would not be here without him. And it would have been such a shame if, after all that, she wouldn't be able to come home. What do you think,
such
Liv?
a shame.
Such a shame. Then we wouldn't have the rest of the book.
It almost would have been like an actual sacrifice, I guess.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, I don't know if I can say this yet, but the way that she comes back and her new identity. Can we talk about that? Is that revealed at the end of this chapter?
Her new identity?
Are you talking about, so what is shared is that she's no longer human.
Right. Okay, thank you.
That's no great. more shifting, yeah.
Yeah, I have this horrible opinion that if it was the other way around, it would have actually felt like more of a sacrifice, because then she wouldn't have had this long lifespan.
Yeah, she wouldn't have had this long life with Rowan.
With Rowan, yeah. Anyway, Rowan's a cool guy.
No, I actually like that. I think that would have been very interesting, because she's always been a human that can turn into a fae, and that's been mentioned multiple times. So why did you take away the magic part, which is the fae? Why didn't you take that part?
Yeah.
That's very Yep. I think it's which, how do we say this? I feel like even though these chapters were 7 chapters, this was such a weirdly I don't want to say inconsequential, but I feel like in terms of Aelin's feelings, this is what impacted her the least in this book.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have magic anymore. Neat. Cool. I'm not human anymore. Neat. Cool.
Yeah.
We solved the word key problem, but we didn't get any closer with the Erwin problem.
Yep. It's
very that she should have been more devastated about that and been like, oh my gosh, and now I also don't have any powers.
Yeah. So we're all fucked, by the way.
Yeah.
JK, LOL, we're all fucked. I didn't actually do anything.
This is the worst case scenario, really.
Yeah.
I'm less powerful and Erewhon's still here, guys.
Yeah. Yay! Look, guys, I shut the gate. This is what you wanted, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I want to go. I I don't know. Liv, what do you think about Rowan being our MVP this week?
Why am I the deciding factor? It's
Well,
two
no,
against one.
I want your thoughts. I want your thoughts.
No, I still think it should be the king because I mean we wouldn't have Dorian for the rest of the book without him.
Well, Aelin was planning on shoving Dorian away anyway.
Yeah, I guess.
If you couldn't tell, Liv just really doesn't like the guys in Throne of Glass, and that includes Rowan, but she does really like Dorian. So,
Yeah.
if that wasn't clear,
I feel like the last time I was on the podcast, I was talking about how I hated all of them, but then I was like, we weren't talking about Dorian that week, so I kind of forgot about Dorian.
I'm gonna say Rowan. So 2 against 1. But if we are wrong and you think it should have been the King of Otterland, then please tell us because I do like being wrong about stuff like this. So convince me otherwise. Or if there's a completely third party that we didn't even consider, please let us know.
It could be Irene again. I don't know.
It could be just Fenris saying bitch in this.
Yeah,
season.
right?
Yeah,
Like, I
You
mean,
never
like, he's
know.
just us, right? he's saying all the things that we feel.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that is it for this episode. Thank you for this sticking with us for this extra long episode. If you really like listening to us and what we do, then please subscribe, like this video, turn on some notifications so you know when the next episode comes out. We are down to the final couple of episodes. So if this is the first time you're tuning in, make sure you go back and you read through the rest of Kingdom of Ash for us so you are ready for when episode 12 comes out. All right. I think that's all. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.